Two major banks, JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank, are facing lawsuits regarding their ties to notorious sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein.
A federal judge in New York ruled today that the U.S. Virgin Islands and women who accused deceased investor Jeffrey Epstein of sexual abuse can move ahead with their lawsuits alleging that JP Morgan participated in the financier's sex trafficking scheme. The judge also allowed parts of a suit by Epstein accusers to move forward against Deutsche Bank as well.
A U.S. judge has just ruled that the lawsuits can proceed, though the majority of the counts against the banks were dismissed. The first lawsuit was brought by a woman who is choosing to remain anonymous on behalf of herself and other Epstein victims, alleging that JP Morgan, quote, knowingly benefited from participating in a sex trafficking venture and had, quote, negligently failed to exercise reasonable care to prevent physical harm. Epstein had been a client with the bank from 1998 to 2013, at which point he began working with Deutsche Bank.
Now, the decision comes after an attorney for the U.S. Virgin Islands said in court last week that JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon knew about Epstein's crimes and, quote, JP Morgan Chase knew. The attorney said JP Morgan, quote, broke every rule to facilitate his sex trafficking in exchange for Epstein's wealth, connections, and referrals. Spokespeople for JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank declined to comment today. In the past, JP Morgan has said Dimon does not have any recollection of reviewing the Epstein accounts. So far, evidence produced in the case has been embarrassing for JP Morgan, with plaintiffs' filings showing that an executive there had an extensive personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, even as he oversaw Epstein's accounts. New documents will likely be turned over as the case develops.
Similarly, a lawsuit against Deutsche Bank alleges that the bank chose to work with Epstein, even though 40 underage girls had already made sexual assault claims against him. Now, Deutsche Bank has actually already paid a price for its involvement with Epstein, a $150 million price.
It was a mistake to onboard Mr. Epstein in 2013, for sure, at that point in time. Escalation processes did not work like they should have worked. Since then, since we detected that, Deutsche Bank has done everything to investigate this case.
And third, the U.S. Virgin Islands is suing JP Morgan on the grounds that the bank enabled Epstein's sex trafficking operation. Of course, Epstein Island is located in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Originally, JP Morgan's legal team argued that the claims didn't sufficiently demonstrate that the bank knew or was complicit in Epstein's operation. But a lawyer representing the plaintiff said that the operation would have been, quote, impossible without the assistance of JP Morgan Chase and later Deutsche Bank. Now, in related news, Jess Staley, former CEO at Barclays and ex-JP Morgan employee, is being deposed this week regarding his ties to Epstein. Staley and Epstein reportedly exchanged 1,200 emails, in which Staley repeatedly used the term Snow White, whatever that means. It is believed that Staley had knowledge of Epstein's more illicit affairs, and there are allegations that he even witnessed improper behavior between Epstein and an underage girl. The last time Staley saw Epstein, according to reporting from the Associated Press, was in 2015 on Epstein's private island, just prior to Staley being hired at Barclays. JP Morgan has accused Staley of intentional and outrageous conduct, and the bank wants Staley to be made liable for any penalties JP Morgan might endure as a result of the lawsuits. Staley, of course, denies any involvement in Epstein's crimes, but it seems that JP Morgan would like him to be the fall guy for the organization's ties to Epstein. JP Morgan said, quote, if these allegations against Staley are true, he violated his duty by putting his own personal interests ahead of the company's. The bigger story with all of this is something that's being mirrored in our own governmental and justice systems right now, as we all wait to hear whether or not our former president will be indicted for criminal behavior. And that is the tendency for the systems that govern our lives to not only be fallible, but to enable and protect wrongdoing and wrongdoers. The higher up in an organization one goes, whether that's a CEO of a major banking institution or the president of the United States, the more protected they are, not just by those systems, but by the people beneath them in the organization. As someone climbs the corporate or public ladder, they become more powerful. They acquire supporters within their institutions, but they also enjoy external support from people that are attracted to or impressed by their wealth and their status. They become riskier targets for anyone witnessing any wrongdoing and seeking to expose them for it. So it's not anything groundbreaking to say that the systems are broken and we need to fix them, or that we need to root out corruption wherever we see it, whenever we see it, obviously. But for our individual parts, we can consider our own relationships to people in power, whether or not we respect them, why or why not, how we feel about their wealth and the ways in which they acquired it, whether or not we wish we could be them or be friends with them. All of that matters in shaping a national narrative because we are complicit in these systems and individuals becoming as powerful and as corrupt as they have. We give them our support, whether financially or socially, and they grow. We see them as untouchable, and they essentially become untouchable with no public accountability. We worship their wealth and we treat them like royalty, which is ironic because Americans really are pretty anti-royalty. It's kind of our thing. So while these stories always feel a world away from us, they're sort of not. We're a part of a culture in which people like Jeffrey Epstein are allowed to thrive for much longer than they ever should. I would like to think that we are working to change that, though. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe to the channel and be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you.